Not all art journaling days are equally energetic or ambitious. And when the energy is not there, yet there is still an inner need to express yourself on paper, some simpler and more encouraging techniques can become a wonderful alternative to drawing and painting. In this video, I'll share with you two of my current obsessions that led to creating these tiny art journals. Those techniques are very simple, very approachable and accessible, and most importantly, effective for reigniting and maintaining art journaling curiosity. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Anna, and I started this channel to share art journaling tips and inspirations, and also how I build my personal art practice for self-exploration. I have another YouTube channel where I post gently philosophical essays. I also have a Patreon community with more personal videos about my life in Serbia, and I also have a Substack now about art journaling. I come up with ideas, make art, write essays, and turn them into videos all by myself using my own human intelligence and creative nerve or creative muscle or whatever anatomical metaphor is appropriate. In the first part of the video, I will briefly explain each technique, and then I will talk in more detail about these tiny art journals that I created using those techniques. I will flip through these and I will break down what I did in there, and most importantly, why. Because I do believe that every creative action of ours has a meaning. The meaning and deciphering that meaning, noticing it, can transform our personal art practice in the best way possible. There are chapters in the video, so you can navigate it the way you want it. The first technique is using a shaped hole puncher. Yes, it's the device that is usually reserved for kids and scrapbooking, and I was very curious to try it in intentional art journaling with my thoughts and my personal stories behind the visuals. I bought this hole puncher for less than $2 in a stationery store for kids. I utilize it two ways: the actual shaped elements and the empty silhouette, the hole. I used paper from vintage books, magazines, and scraps from my collage papers that I painted myself. I have noticed three major functions that a hole-punched element can perform in art journaling. It creates rhymes and rhythm within the art journal. Adding the same elements ties visuals into one story. Pick a shape that feels like you at this particular moment in your life. It can be a star, a sparkle, a little bonfire, a butterfly, a flower, a bird. The choice in my nearby store was not great, but what I've chosen was the best. This little sun or sparkle or star, I'm not sure. And a week later, after I tried this and fell in love with this, I bought a second hole puncher, and now it's a 5-pointed star, and I loved using it as well. It becomes a finishing touch when an art journal entry feels unfinished, yet you have no idea what to add. Consider this a tiny ornament, a punctuation mark that can be an exclamation or a full stop or a question. It's all up to you to decide. It can be an art journal entry in itself on days when you just don't know what to create, yet still crave art journaling. It's an easy way to tackle the fear of a blank page, and in my recent Substack article I mentioned it alongside with 9 more ways to address the first blank page in an art journal. The second technique is stamping, using either DIY'd or repurposed stamps. I'm not a fan of ready-made solutions. I believe that DIYing as much as we can boosts our creativity and teaches us to trust ourselves and our own ways of doing and making things. I have a small cheap set of carving tools that I bought secondhand about 10 years ago, and I was carrying it around hoping that one day I will use it again. So this day has come. I carved tiny stamps from a simple rubber, and I bought again very cheap ink pad from a stationery store. And I instantly got obsessed with this technique. First, because it's so fun and it has that crafting element that on many instances can feel more intuitive and liberating than just purely making art. And secondly, because it gives a vast field for experiment while still keeping it structured. And let me expand on this a little bit more because I think this insight is important and might resonate with you as well. This stamping technique adds uniformity when you need a bit less chaos in your journal. I talk about chaos and order in creative practice a lot. The key idea is that we all need different proportions or ratios of chaos and order depending on our personality, on our life situation, personal turbulence, mood, or even health condition. And intuitive art journaling usually shows very clearly what you are drawn to more at the moment. And when you need more order, a little bit more structure, stamping can be an amazing technique. My current obsession with stamps and printing techniques is definitely a translation of my inner yearning for more grounding order. And who am I to say no to my subconsciousness? Apart from hand-carved simple stamps, I used a round stamp that actually is a repurposed base of a very cheesy scrapbooking stamp, a set of which my husband gave me, and it came with a set of stamping pads. I used this repurposed stamp in this art journal of mine, and I was not striving to be perfect. I wanted to experiment with uneven shapes. And so now let me move on to the actual art journals and show you what I did in there using these two techniques that I just described. I called this art journal silent because it doesn't have a single word, and the story that was born in here also feels silent to me, like a movie from the past. I stitched the journal using paper that I painted with watercolors and loose pages that I had from a calligraphy set that I bought in a supermarket chain. This twig is from a clothing tag. I repurpose everything that I can. For the visuals, I used the stamp, the shaped hole puncher, and a vintage Hungarian book that I found in a fascinating used bookstore in the city of Subotica, which is in Serbia. For tiny color adjustments, I used a black brush pen. I utilized one of my favorite collage hacks for creating an expressive character, which is attaching human legs to anything other than a human. I don't like to plan and make preliminary sketches or thumbnails for my art practice unless I'm making something for shows or for sale. Art journaling is the territory of freedom, so at first I stamped each page however I wanted. Then I picked images that sat together well and created a relationship between the circles. And then, for final touches, I added the little shaped sparks or stars. And that's it. I didn't think, I followed my intuition and did what felt right. Working with simple shapes and collage elements really develops a sense of composition. Composition is a very intimidating concept, especially for beginners, those who never went to an art school and just want to art journal without self-judgment and criticism. I am like that. All the theoretical knowledge of composition flew past me. It didn't settle in the right way. When I create, I don't want to think of any rules. I want to be free. That's why I've chosen to replace the composition rules with relationships between the elements on the page. There needs to be something tying everything together when the art journal entry looks like a sentence. And that sentence has to make sense to you, first of all. This art journal and the silent sentences that it carries make total sense to me. I see how I translated my experience of introversion and also love of simplicity and expressiveness that doesn't have to be loud. Quietude and silence are among my main inspirations, and that's why I called the second art journal Quiet. I made it using the same loose paper from the calligraphy set, tracing paper for the cover, another twig from my clothing tag, and metal decor elements shaped as seashells that I detached from my blouse. For the visuals, I used the same hole puncher, hand-carved stamps, scraps from previous collage sessions, fragments from magazines, black paint, and words as well. My love of quietude was not the only inspiration for this art journal. I also wanted to make it as a counter statement to the AI taking over the human language. In a nutshell, texts that are generated using artificial intelligence tools usually sound in a very specific way, and there are certain markers that point at the fact that the text could have been written by a machine and not a human. And one of such markers has become the word quiet, which bums me so much because it's one of my favorite words in English language. And if you ever saw YouTube video titles like "This quietly destroys your life," most probably scripts for those videos, or at least titles, were written using AI. I don't want to go too deep into the details. If you're interested, there are tons of articles now how to distinguish AI written text. So let me show you what I created in here. I made this art journal to celebrate the word quiet and bring it back to our shared humanness, and hence are the meanings that stand behind the visuals. I left a lot of empty space to create more air and thus intensify the feeling of quietness. For example, here there are just 3 elements on the page, and here there are only 2. Yet for me, the sensation, the movement is there, and it's just enough to make the page speak to me. Here I just used the hand-carved round stamp over and over again to shape a somewhat chaotic but still rhythmical space, and the punched star became a nuance, an accent that is not noticed right away. Its presence is quiet. On this page, I included a rearranged phrase I cut out from a vintage Soviet art book. It says, "A ray of sunlight seems to elucidate a fragment of the surrounding world." I wanted to create a scene of quiet witnessing of life through using simple collaging and stamping. Here I just applied some black gouache using a plastic card, and in the silhouette I saw a creature. So I added yellow glowing eyes and a rhyming element with an empty punch hole. Maybe it's a quiet ghost or a quiet shadow. On this page, I wanted to play with composition, or, as I said previously, with relationships between the elements and the balance. I used the triangle stamp and 3 collage pieces. I aimed to use the vast empty space and the limited colors to invite quietness. And the last page is just a constellation of punched stars. I wanted to make it dynamic and to convey a meditative, quiet feeling of falling leaves in autumn or snow in winter. These 2 new for me techniques have entered the list of my all-time favorites. They are very accessible, very simple, very cheap, and very satisfying and developing your own imagination, a sense of personal style, and I hope that this video inspired you to try something like that in your art journaling. If yes, if it did inspire you, please let me know in the comments. There is also a text version of this sharing available on my Substack, so feel free to subscribe. The link will be down below. There I post extra things about art journaling. And if you enjoy what I do here on this channel and beyond, and you want and can support my work of an independent creative, all the ways to do that will be down below. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, dear fellow creatives. I'm wishing you to have enough quiet, inspiring time to spend it with yourself and your art journal. And I will see you in the next video here on my second channel, or on Patreon, or on Substack. And until then, пока-пока.